Welcome back. Let's take you back to our focus for the day, and that's around electricity. The minister in that particular portfolio, that's Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa, earlier this week pledging that they'll be ultra-aggressive in implementing renewable energy to address the country's crisis. Let's turn our attention to the situation, though, at a local government level. Bring in now City Power spokesperson Isaac Mangena, who joins us via our video link this morning. Great to have you in the program, sir, and welcome to the SABC. We really are spoiled for choice, aren't we, when it comes to trying to get to the bottom of the many issues that are plaguing the city at the moment. But perhaps top of mind is that ongoing discussion around the implementation of a surcharge. Now, the only reason why I'm starting there is because we've had different people saying different things about what the future of this change actually looks like. We've heard from the mayor saying it will stay, but there's been other people within the council who are suggesting that there may be a reconsideration of the surge. What does City Power know about what the way forward looks like?
Good morning, and thanks for having us to clarify this and other issues around the electricity supply within the city of Johannesburg. With the issue of the surcharge or the service and network charge of 230 rands, as far as we know, as City Power, we are still continue to implement the tariff as approved by NERSA on the 1st of July, and we haven't been notified otherwise. And as such, we will continue to basically make sure that that is implemented. It has gone through processes as per the regulator, and as the municipal entity, we have done everything that was supposed to be done to ensure that there is consultation with the customers, there is consultation at the council level, there is approval at council level from different political parties, and also obviously starting the process from NERSA. So as City Power, as things stand now, we are implementing the 12.72% tariff increase that NERSA has approved, and also the 230 rands extra service and network charges for the prepaid customers who in the past have not been paying this amount.
Yeah, it's a double blow at a very difficult time. I have no doubt that you've noted the backlash, even from some political parties that are represented in this council. And I know you're not a lawmaker in the city yourself, but I'm sure City Power has at the very least seen what's taken place and is also in some ways weighing their options. Can you even do that?
We have been weighing options on this issue. This issue has been on the table since 2017. So as City Power, when laws are made in council and elsewhere around the regulator space, we basically implement that as per the decisions that are made. And we had been given this go-ahead to basically implement the 200, and at that time it was 200 rands surcharge by the government of that time in 2017-2018. And we were then told that it went back to council, and they've decided that because of the pressures around COVID-19, we will postpone the implementation until the economy is basically improved, and also the residents are actually out of the red in terms of the economic status. So that's why we actually brought it back even this year. I mean, last year when we applied for the tariff increase to NERSA, remembering that when we do that application to NERSA, NERSA also requires what we call cost of supply study, and part of that will basically give you a breakdown of the costs that City Power has to incur before we bring electricity to the customer's wall. And all of that was taken into consideration when a decision was made that we need to basically ensure that we recover some of the costs that we are spending in terms of supply from the power station, the substation, until the wall of the customer. The prepaid and all of those things have basically been dealt with at council when the approval was also made at that level. And with council processes, the decisions that are made in council are binding to every political party that is within that council, even those that have actually been against that decision. But because of the majority of the council, that's why we call it a council decision. We don't call it so-and-so political party's decision. And so that process has been exhausted. It was even followed by the IDP process that was led by the chairperson of the speaker of the council. And we have done everything and ticked all the boxes. So us as the officials on the ground is the implementation, and that's basically what we are doing.
Yeah, there are people, of course, who are suggesting that the only reason why we have to deal with this kind of surcharge now is because infrastructure hasn't been maintained in the past, and now it's consumers who are having to foot the bill for that. What's your response to at least that narrative which is making the rounds?
Look, I did indicate that part of our submission to NERSA was the cost of supply study. That cost includes the maintenance of the infrastructure, the transmission and distribution line from the power station, from the substation to the customer's wall. All of that, those costs are the costs that City Power is basically incurring every time, every year. So last financial year, we spent about 1.1 billion rands on maintenance alone, and it can give you an idea of the amount of work that needs to basically take place. We have been doing this maintenance for some time, and if we're not maintaining, it's like a car. If you don't take it for service, it will one day stop on your way to Devon, and it means you won't be able to reach a destination. So as City Power, we also make sure that our fleet of infrastructure, electricity infrastructure, is maintained at all time. 1.1 billion last year basically went to this maintenance, and that is part of the charge that we basically the cost that we gave to NERSA for this approval. And as such, you find that the prepaid customers have not been contributing to this charge. So I'll give you an example about you. You are paying for you are on postpaid. Ayanda is on prepaid, and you both are neighbors in the same street using the same green box or mini substation or den.
Oh dear, what a pity. It looks like we've lost our connection there to Isaac Mangena, and it was such an important part of our discussion. I'm hoping we'll be able to try and re-establish that connection for you and continue our discussion hopefully within the hour, especially because we're getting to the heart of at least City Power's own justification around why they reckon this 230 Rand surcharge is necessary. It's still an incredibly difficult pill to swallow, though, for the many residents who are not only having to deal with the surcharge, but also have to deal with tariff hikes that come from NERSA and load reduction. So in other words, they're paying for more power at a time when they're receiving less power, which happens to coincide, for many residents at least, with the incredibly cold weather that we've experienced over the past couple of days. So we'll hopefully try to get Isaac Mangena back for you to respond at the very least to that kind of sentiment. Something ought to be said about the rate at which the infrastructure seems to be buckling, especially in the city of Johannesburg. That's over and above these long-standing issues around vandalism of infrastructure. I mean, you just have to drive around the city to just notice some of the many traffic lights, for example, that are completely uprooted, if not, damaged in one way or the other. At an optics level, it seems there's a real problem in the city, and I suppose many people are suggesting it's not fair that ultimately the consumer has to foot the bill for that. So we'll try to get Isaac Mangena back on the line for you. He, of course, is with City Power. All right, let's take you back to our discussion around power supply in the city of Johannesburg. We're in conversation with City Power spokesperson Isaac Mangena, who joins us once again via our video link. And apologies for that, Isaac. You were still explaining to us the rationale behind the implementation of that surcharge, but I think the bulk of the point has been made. Hopefully you weren't cut because of a power outage, because as you and I speak, many residents, of course, in the city don't have consistent power supply, even though Eskom is telling us that it's not an issue, in fact, to do with generation. So this isn't a supply constraint. It seems at a municipal level, infrastructure isn't able to keep up with the increase in demand. Let's perhaps unpack just how many outages you're dealing with at the moment, and perhaps which areas seem to be recurring problems.
Thanks and apologies to the viewers for that break in transmission. It's not electricity that cut me off there. I think the network. Okay. So to go into your question, we basically we were dealing with about 3,000 outage calls, I think, by this morning when we woke up, and most of those were coming from different areas. But I think we had sore points around Ilovo. We had areas around Sandringham also yesterday having issues. We still had problems within the Rudeport area. There were issues there as well, but most of those have been resolved. In fact, most of them were resolved overnight, but it's just that obviously the numbers were still, the calls were still on the system. But we do see this kind of increases, especially during the few days where the temperatures dropped very low to even -degrees Celsius. So I think that is something that we expect, especially during this time where demand for electricity actually is going very high. But yes, you are correct. There is a huge strain on our network currently this time, and that's why we have embarked on what we call load reduction. And the load reduction basically is because of the danger that we see on our network, on our systems, that if we are not able to control the consumption that is demanded out there by the residents, then we may actually wake up without any infrastructure because of it would have blown up, power station would have caught fire. We have covered those kind of stories before. And I think I need to put context to this. Most of these areas that we're talking about where load reduction is happening is most of the areas where you find a lot of illegalities, whether there's the theft of electricity in informal settlements, but also the meters that have been bypassed, the mushrooming of the backyard rooms. So this is extra added capacity to the capacity that we had basically designed the network for. And this is happening at higher speed than we can basically rebuild the infrastructure or even electrify certain people. As I'm talking to you now, on the last count, we had about 321 informal settlements within the city of Johannesburg, and it's because of Johannesburg by nature it's attractive to migrant and so forth, and most of them come here without any areas or place to stay, and they set up these informal settlements and they steal electricity. And that is the problem that we are basically see some behavioral change from some of our customers.
All right. Apologies, Isaac. Our connection to you isn't as stable as one would have hoped, but perhaps let me ask this final question. Now that the surcharge is being implemented, I wonder how long you reckon it will take for City Power to finally get around to upgrading and maintaining the infrastructure to respond to a trend that we always knew was taking place, right? There is migration into the city. It's unlikely to stop at any time soon. And at some stage, something has to give, you know? And I'm asking this question, keeping in mind the many residents who aren't able to even watch us because they haven't had electricity, some of them since Sunday, even during this cold weather. How long do you reckon City Power needs to finally get around to responding to the demand, as it were, and ensuring that there's consistent supply, especially because, as I mentioned earlier, Eskom tells us the issue is not on their end, it's on yours.
Yes, indeed. I think we have basically came here before to indicate that we are operating a very old infrastructure. Our infrastructure backlog is sitting at around 40 billion rands, 40 billion rands for us to basically be able to deal with this. You'll also appreciate that most of this infrastructure is as old as the City of Gold. When gold was first discovered, electricity came through, and that's how long some of this infrastructure has been sitting there. But over time and over the years, we have been basically rebuilding some of this infrastructure to ensure that we catch up with the growing population, the growing needs of our city, and to ensure that we attract investment within the city of Johannesburg. But you know, these decisions are not made by you and I. They are made at council level. We made those proposals to say, can we have so much money every year? We have a wish list of how much we need in terms of budgets to make sure that we deal with the backlog, but you often get a fraction of the amount that you need to basically do that. So last year we had about 1.5 billion for the infrastructure so that we can build and also maintain some of this infrastructure, and that is not enough. That does not even cover the basis of what we need to do. So I think the more we can basically get funding to at least improve some of this infrastructure, build more substations, electrify informal settlements, then we will basically be able to move the needle. And that's why the provincial government has actually also stepped in to ensure that we deal with some of these inherent problems around the supply of electricity. We're moving towards moving away from the wires game, the electricity only, but also looking at alternative energy sources so that we can be able to where we're not able to electrify microgrids like we are doing in Alexandra and other areas and so forth. So I think it's a long way, but it's somewhere where we are basically having hope that we will get to address if we don't own electricity, which not only is problematic when it comes to the supply, but it's also expensive, as you rightfully pointed out in the beginning of this interview.
All right, Isaac Mangena, we have to leave it there. There's so much else to discuss, but hopefully we'll be able to do that throughout the course of the day. Isaac Mangena, thanks very much indeed. Isaac is the spokesperson of City Power.